Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heart Core Hustle. I'm your host, Felicia Pizzonia. And when you hustle from the heart, it's not hard. You're actually doing what spontaneously inspires you from within, which means it doesn't require outside motivation. If you want to figure out what are your highest values, feel free to check out FeliciaPizzonia.com. And this episode today is brought to you by the Ultimate Publishing House.com, which coincidentally is the publisher of Biology of the Brain. And that's our special guest today, which I would like to explain a little further who Kent MacLeod is. He's a pioneer in the compounding pharmacy industry. He launched NutriChem in Ottawa in the late 70s, and he's truly an expert when it comes to your microbiome. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the microbiome and immunity and various cutting edge information on how you can achieve optimum health. Because you know what? You've only got one body, one life, and you're going to spend the money anyway. So it's very important to invest in your health. And so check out NutriChem.com. This is Kent's book, Biology of the Brain. You could also grab a copy there. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kent MacLeod to the show. Welcome,
Thank
Kent.
you. Thank you, Felicia. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. You're at the cottage today. Whereabouts are you in Canada?
In Gananoque, which is close to Kingston on the beautiful St. Lawrence River. So it's
fantastic. We'll all come visit you after the show.
Absolutely. It's beautiful today.
Excellent. Kent, tell us a little bit about how you started off and why did you choose compounding as a compound pharmacy as your forte or mission of choice, if you will?
I think we believe in the pharmaceutical industry as you have more science, more chemistry, and more information about a client. We are taught, or somehow we're marketed, that somehow we have to fit individuals to the drugs or the products that are available to us. And I had problems with that right from the get-go. I remember I was making morphine suppositories for people that couldn't swallow at end-of-life issues. And so many, and patients would be told, if they couldn't get that injection from the doctor, there was nothing they could do if they were dying at home. They'd have to suffer. Children who had problems with specific food additives were told, well, you can't take that medication because it's not available. And even in nutrition, so many problems with and so many benefits to certain nutrients in kids with autism, where the existing formats weren't, or doses or methods of administration, for example, for an autistic kid, the often texture or the type or flavor impacts whether a child's going to take it. So the adaptation was for the medication to fit the patient, not a manual that has somehow you have to force yourself or your child into. So it's compounding is the right way of thinking, not the wrong way of thinking. I'm not an outlier. I'm actually what should be done. Medication fit to the patient.
Makes sense. It's actually the right thing to do. And can you explain to our viewers, what does compounding mean? Let's just make it crystal clear.
So compounding essentially means that you're doing something for a client when either the condition of the client or the practitioner mandates more precision, and the existing, it's not available in the catalog. I mean, even a simple example is I just literally got off the phone with someone that I'm trying to improve their microbiome and get them off antidepressant medication. But for example, the antidepressant drug they're taking is only, the lowest strength is 25 milligrams. And they go into withdrawal if and you can't split the capsule. So we make 5 milligram and 1 milligram doses so that we can taper them slower. So again, in one day we do hundreds of different things where the existing format is not suitable for therapeutic reasons. So again, it's, even for women's hormones, for example, the pharmaceutical industry makes 100 milligram progesterone capsule, 100 milligram, but some women need 10 milligrams, some women need 20 milligrams, some women need 130 milligrams. Why should every woman fit either 100 milligrams or nothing? Because that dose can be too much for some women and they're not getting the benefits of progesterone, or too little. And still, we know there's less side effects when you apply hormones through the skin, and you get a more long-term. Again, pharmaceutical industry does not make skin or transdermally applied hormones. So again, imagine a whole field just of women's hormones where the pharmaceutical industry wants one woman to fit only what they make, not adjust according to their own physiology. And again, the microbiome is intimately involved in hormone metabolism. That's actually how one of the most fascinating things about my evolution with the microbiome was compounding taught me that some women need 20 milligrams and women need 300 milligrams of progesterone. And even though they're in menopause, why is that? And the microbiome played a role in that. So it's quite fascinating, the microbiome evolution from compounding, because you observed individuality that was not explained through certainly not from the pharmaceutical company, so you began to understand that the relationships. Does that make sense how I'm explaining it?
Totally, Kent. As a matter of fact, I have a few questions stemming from what you just mentioned, which is truly brilliant. Tell us a little bit about, there's three things here, three questions. Number one, Canada is one of the, if not the most medicated in terms of antidepressants. I don't know if that's a factor if we're in the top three, so forgive me, but I know that we're up there.
You're actually, you're right, yes.
Yeah. And it's nothing to be proud of. So let's talk about the fact that we're heavily medicated and prescribe antidepressants like candy. And why does it affect the microbiome, and how could other people benefit, like this patient you're talking about, in weaning themselves off the antidepressant and just letting their neurotransmitters balance themselves?
Well, as a pharmacist, right, the issue isn't you might argue with, awareness campaigns, that it's good that Canada has lots of antidepressants, because we create these awareness campaigns that say, be aware of depression and go speak to your doctor. And the doctor's solution often is antidepressant medications. And in itself, the problem, if this was effective, that wouldn't be a problem. But we've shown repeatedly in mild to moderate depression that antidepressants are no better than placebo. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not, and I have to explain, that doesn't mean they're innocuous drugs. They're very powerful drugs. So what does that mean? What it means is that quality of life, for example, when you look in people who don't know whether they're on a sugar pill or on the antidepressant, is no better when you're on the drug. For example, you may have less anxiety or mood problems, but now you have no sex drive, you're gaining weight, you have more digestive problems, you're 80% cognitive dysfunction. So those quality of life issues may outweigh any of the benefits of the drug. So that's why it's no better than placebo. So the pride of awareness campaigns and having the most antidepressants prescribed when they're proven to not be effective. And of course, there are adverse effects, and significantly increased risk of suicide upon initiation, and all these other side effects I mentioned. So the purpose of the microbiome book is literally saying, you know, what if you have depression? We know the antidepressants aren't effective, and you have serious digestive issues. We've proven that improving your digestion, your microbiome, can improve your mental health. So that's important, right? If you believe, or your doctor believes, the only option is a drug that is proven to be no better than placebo, and you have a serious digestive problem, I always scratch my head, like, why wouldn't you improve your digestion? Again, the reason why is because medically, the third most prescribed drug in Canada are these drugs called PPIs, or proton pump inhibitors, which are prescribed then for your digestive problem, which actually make the problem worse. They are again inappropriately prescribed. So almost often we'll have, I just had someone literally this morning, I was completing their consult where they were on antidepressants and PPIs. It's kind of like the terrible duo of mental health problems. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And these drugs, imagine PPIs increasing your risk of Alzheimer's disease, kidney failure, bone loss, micronutrient anxiety. You know, it just and so, you know, they're supposed to be only used for 2 weeks max, and they're used for years, and people aren't even aware that they're contributing to their possible mental health issues. It's and the antidepressants. So you see and now we got pain problems. And guess what? Then what do? Add opioids to it? You see, it creates a terrible situation. That's what we call iatrogenic, meaning medical system caused mental and physical problems. It's quite sad when you're, you know, and again, I just happened to be, you know, last week, we're right in the middle of all these cases that literally were drug-induced problems, you know, and solving microbiomes and, you know, have no risk and have significant upside.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Kent. And, you know, if I may say candidly, I think that it's the medical world's duty and moral obligation, particularly doctors. And I'm a partner in the Ultimate Publishing House. We had the pleasure to work with you directly in publishing biology of the brain. And I feel that it's medical professionals' moral obligation to do their due diligence when they're prescribing so easily to various patients and people these medications that can technically do at times more harm than good. And I could speak on that because I have family members that are compromised and got into the pharmaceutical system with statins, for instance, and then it's very difficult to reverse. So thank God that there's someone like you, Kent. I wouldn't say, I mean, you're obviously a great success, but more importantly, you're a man on a mission. So I thank you for doing that. And tell us a little bit about the microbiome and, you know, your journey in writing biology of the brain.
So just to finish this point, sure. I was involved in a study with 4 other pharmacists across Canada that was published in the Canadian Pharmaceutical Journal that was trying to figure out not the issues around PPIs, we already know they're dangerous, was how come pharmacists aren't telling people about the dangers of PPI? So what are the barriers? So you see, we're beyond this is a problem. We're trying to analyze the barriers as to why a profession like pharmacists aren't telling people don't do this when they're harmful. So it's, you know, just to be clear, it's not a controversial issue that these drugs are harmful. What's controversial is why isn't professionals doing something about it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think, and what I observed as a segue into your question, mm-hmm. What I observed is that people put down a lot of excuses when they're, you know, when they are pharmacists. I'm too busy. The patients won't listen to me. It costs money to talk to people. There are a bunch of excuses, and ultimately, the bottom line is, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. You're giving drugs that hurt people, and if you have to do more, more education and learning, and you have to put your neck out, and you have to spend some time, you're saving lives. And what if you save one life a week versus handing those pills out to hundreds of people in a day? That's 50 lives a year times a career. You know what I mean? Like, stop looking for barriers and start doing the right thing. And part of my job with the book was to say, here, give your patients the book, let them read about it. If you have no time, start, and legitimately, many people don't want to. They feel, well, that's what my doctor said. I don't want to disrupt anything. Oh, well, and so the book is a tool to help professionals and people understand some of these issues. How I got into it was history, right? Years of observing, like I observing how, when I was consulting, how hormones interacted differently when I improved gut chemistry. I thought that was fascinating, but not published. How many practitioners back in the day were using microbiome interventions. We didn't know much about it, and 25 years ago, I observed that if I took gluten out of someone's diet, about half the people felt better. So we had only about 10 studies, 15 years ago, 10 studies on the microbiome. And yet we observed all these alternative interventions making a difference, right? And today, we have 7,000 to 9,000 studies each month. So it's observing significant benefits over the years, but not understanding what you're doing. We kind of said, your gut is important. Your gut's a second brain. And I would observe dietary changes or antifungals or removing sugar, making a big difference in people's health or getting better, less menopausal symptoms. But I didn't understand why, right? But today, it's gone from zero information to a geyser of information. So the book, to me, was just inevitable. It just was like, of course, that makes sense. This is what's going on. And it's like, don't you, it's almost like you've moved from alternative saying, what are you telling people to remove sugar from their diet and to eat cleaner? You're a crackpot, to, oh my God, if you're not doing this, and then you're living under a rock. So it's quite a transition.
Phenomenal. Excellent. And this is the actual book, everyone. You can check it out, Biology of the Brain, forward written by Suzanne Summers, and you can grab a copy off of Amazon or biologyofthebrainbook.com, or better yet, you can check out NutriChem.com. There's a limited edition soft cover as well, and the hardcover. And I'm sure that the first 20 orders, Kent will autograph a copy for you. This time we're just doing 20 since it took a long time to sign hundreds. But we appreciate that, Kent. So let's talk a little bit about the microbiome and how it indeed is your second brain. We know that neuroscience is still in its infancy stages, and it seems that the microbiome is also in its infancy stages in terms of what we really know about it. So let's talk about how the gut is connected to your brain, and how could we do some really easy, what could we implement today to change it up a bit and improve it?
So, the first thing is, imagine that you can take a microbiome from an animal that has tremors. And the microbiome is the bugs in your poop, right? So you do a fecal transplant of like a rat that has tremors or a Parkinson's-like condition, put it in another one, and you can give him Parkinson's-like condition. You take the microbiome of a fat rat and you put it into a skinny rat. That rat becomes fat. I mean, there's all these like very like dot experiments that literally transport neurological ailments from one animal to another by and physiological changes like weight from transporting just simply the microbiome over from one animal to the other, right? So it's very clear, like from a animal point of view. And of course, we have all the evidence in human fecal transplants with very serious disorders that are not responding to any other therapies, including autism, where we're starting to see evidence of the microbiome impacting the brain. So we know it's connected in obvious, gross experiments. Poop from this guy into this person changes things. Okay, so that's pretty clear, right? When you see that. How does it do it? Well, first of all, it's complicated, but we know about 8 or 9 different ways how it influences it. So that in a simplistic way, a healthy microbiome versus an unhealthy biome is like looking at a lawn where the unhealthy microbiome has a lot of weeds and very little different grass. Or another analogy is like a rainforest. So the unhealthy microbiome has only one type of tree or shrub and very little others. So it lacks diversity and is overgrown with some more inflammatory gas-producing species. And that change influences your immune system. It influences inflammations, so more inflammatory problems in the brain. It influences dramatically neurotransmitters. It influences these things called cytokines. It influences your nutrient absorption. So all the nutrients that are essential for your brain to work are relevant. And it inflames your vagus nerve. So we always know that you can have, if you're anxious, you can have an upset stomach. I had someone the other day who was trying to tell me that when they're so anxious and it's their upset stomach that when they get anxious, they have an upset stomach. I said, actually, you're going to have to learn to turn it around. It's your upset stomach that makes you anxious. He goes, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. I go, yes, that's proven. So, and all the layers below that, you think of it, right? Hormones your hormone metabolism is influenced by your microbiome. So even your thyroid, your sex hormones, your testosterone levels, that active testosterone is influenced. Your cortisol, so there's a relationship between your microbiome, bile formation with your liver, and bile is the most powerful natural antibiotic, and your cortisol. And that's all in one dashboard related to the microbiome. So you just get layers upon layers of how your microbiome influences your brain directly, like the vagus nerve, just like bang, like the 401 right to the brain, and indirectly through all these factors.
Amazing. So tell us then, Kent, and thank you for sharing that. How do we obviously it would be a great idea to invest in yourself, make the call, check out NutriChem.com, book an appointment with Kent MacLeod. I know that I personally did a couple years back, and I would have paid and invested 10 times more than I did. Kent truly helped me. I thought I was in great health, and I was, but I'm in even better health now thanks to Kent helping me balance my microbiome. So tell us, Kent, what are some small steps people can do today to start, whether it's taking pre and probiotics or what have you? What would you suggest?
So this is true when you say, what is the ultimate way to have a healthy microbiome? There's truth in it because everyone agrees. Everyone, alternative, non-alternative, starts to say the same things. It's true when there's no controversy. So what is the end point of a healthy microbiome? Less processed foods, less pesticides in your food, which kills unhealthy bacteria, less antibiotics, in your meats and foods and what you take, because again, antibiotics are still inappropriately prescribed, right? So less antibiotics. So you have less all the processing, all the chemicals, alcohol, excessive alcohol, all the obvious things we know have proven to be disastrous on our microbiomes. And the things that are healthy for our microbiomes are soluble fibers. And where do you get that from? Fruits and vegetables and healthy oils, right? Olive oils, fish oils, fruits and vegetables. And the only problem with that is and the Canada Food Guide was shifted recently to make that emphasis because the evidence is overwhelming. You mentioned statins. Imagine that in non-complicated, meaning someone with elevated cholesterol and no other risk factors for a heart attack or stroke, using soluble fiber, British Medical Journal meta-analysis, is up to 20 times more effective than a statin to prevent a heart attack or stroke. I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? So soluble fiber in the Canada Food Guide, a male needs 38 grams a day, and the female needs 25 grams a day. The average intake of Canadians doesn't meet 50% of those recommendations. So that's the problem. Too much of the bad stuff and too little of the good stuff. So, and then when you have people with serious problems, you use probiotics, antibacterials, diet shifts according to the severity of their problem, and healers. Sometimes we have to put in coating agents to protect the stomach while you're removing the PPI. So you start using probiotics, prebiotics in certain order and certain types to accelerate that shift so that generally that type of healthy diet, or maybe they're not going to get enough fiber, then you supplement with it, because soluble fiber is the superfood of the healthy microbiome. Think of the weeds and the grass. Soluble superfoods or prebiotics is like watering the grass. And again, the other day, someone felt great. She did all the work. I go, did you take your soluble fiber? No, I felt so good. I go, it's like, what if you pulled all the weeds, you have a beautiful lawn, would you stop watering it? Well, no, that would be silly, because then the grass will die and the weeds will come back. I go, exactly. So, it's not that complicated. We have found that one of the healthiest microbiomes occur in terms of the most diverse microbiome in the Mediterranean diet. So again, it's not a restrictive diet, is it? It's a whole foods based. It doesn't restrict, but it strict anything, but it's not full of junk. It's fruits, vegetables, oil orientated, less processing. As an Italian, you don't want to, you want the good, clean, organic fruits and vegetables. You don't want junk that's been processed and put full of chemicals. It becomes very true, isn't it? It's not controversial.
Very true, very true. And it's all island of Okinawa, Sardinia in Italy, and another place called the Blue Zones, where we live to be past, or Centurions, past 100.
And in those blue zones, the microbiomes, regardless of whether it's in Europe, North America, or Asia, they tend to have, when you analyze the microbiomes, they tend to be very similar, very diverse, very, very abundant of all the major phylums or structures of a healthy microbiome. They have very little of these inflammatory bugs, relatively little. It's almost too easy, it seems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Kent, tell us about the how to lower, well, two questions here. How do we lower inflammation, since all aging and disease stems from inflammation, so inflammaging? And then in addition to that, do genetically modified organisms, GMOs, interfere with the microbiome? So there's two questions there.
I think the first question is inflammation. So we know, and in fact, one of the, personally, um, I guess about 8 or 9 years ago, I was starting to become more involved with the microbiome and looking at the literature and starting to go, whoa, okay, this is really important. And but I was telling everyone else to do these, what I call, we use a gut makeover diet. So trying to make a quick shift in the gut chemistry, reduce those weeds, and start start repairing an anti-inflammatory bugs. So I was telling everyone else to do this, and I played college tennis, and I still played competitive age-related tennis with young guys, and I just assumed that I could play hard only, one day I get inflamed, and then I go cycle the next day. But I was very limited in terms of the amount of pounding I can do on a tennis court, and I assumed it was just age-related. So then, I thought, well, I'm telling everyone these diets, so I wonder what I'm going to do it myself. Why wouldn't I do it myself? But I don't have problems, but I'll just observe since I'm telling someone to do this. So what happened was quite fascinating. Was, first of all, I was starving to death. So just simply just eating healthy meat, fruits and vegetables only, nothing else. The first week, I just like, oh my God, I was craving. I brought a bushel of apples into my office, and I was eating like a bushel of apples like crazy, and I was starving, and I was like, and I'd be exhausted at the end of the day and go, what is going on? This is exactly what I would tell some of my clients that they might go through when they're detoxing, right? So I went through this, eating my bucket of apples, like literally a basket of apples, and losing weight while I was like eating thousands of calories of apples. Bizarre, right? And then through 2 or 3 weeks later, my inflammation went down like 90%. I was like a kid again. I was like, oh my God, I'm playing 2 hours a day or 3, and just get up and shake. And it blew my mind how much my own microbiome was involved in inflammation, and so, and then when we talk about, the British Medical Journal issue in the heart, that's inflammation in the heart. We talk about we're starting to understand that Alzheimer's disease is an inflammatory disorder of the brain, right? So we're starting to, and so if you have more inflammation in your gut, it inflames your brain. Brain fog is one of the easiest things to clear up when you heal the microbiome. And then, of course, you have gut inflammation. So you have body inflammation, liver inflammation, brain inflammation, heart inflammation, directly, proven to be related to the microbiome. So if that isn't evidence, I don't know what it is. You know what I mean?
Wonderful, wonderful. It reminds me of a guest we had on the show last week, Grace Van Berken, who created Gracious Living Oasis in Nicaragua, took her father out of an old age home 3 years ago and placed him in Gracious Living, fed him raw vegan food, reversed his Alzheimer's. It's like he's Benjamin Button reverse aging, and he remembered how to draw again and everything. So truly,
well, even, and blood sugar is a big risk factor for inflammation in the body, but particularly the brain. The brain is very sensitive to excessive blood sugar. Mm-hmm. Without question, in type 2 diabetes, you will, by improving the microbiome, you will see virtual normalization of blood sugars. I almost see it so often that it's like, if you can guarantee something, you would guarantee that blood sugars will virtually normalize. And again, so many times I have to say, I have people measuring their blood sugar, and they're on different drugs, and I'm going, well, stay on your metformin, because actually metformin, the drug, has a benefit to the microbiome, which is interesting. We didn't know how that drug worked, but maybe that's one of its mechanisms as well. But the other drugs are often controversial. Imagine that, right? Your blood sugar is high, you change your gut chemistry, and it normalizes. And again, I'm going, well, do you need these drugs anymore? No, right?
Amazing. So, Kent, it seems to me, I mean, it's a no-brainer. When you think it through and listen to what you say, and you read the book Biology of the Brain, and I could totally hear your personality and tone in the book. And many have said that you're very gentle in your delivery, that it's not salesy. You're truly a person on a mission trying to educate the planet on your microbiome. So, out of anything out there in terms of every system of the body, I would totally recommend focusing on the microbiome. It's a no-brainer. So how do we start? Can we call NutriChem and book an appointment with you? And
I mean, of course, we have a whole team focused, like literally naturopathic doctors and nutritionists. We have an amazing team. It's not me alone. We have our whole team has a focus on microbiome and men's health, microbiome, women's health, microbiome and mental health, microbiome. We say those words because in the future, everyone will go, well, I'm a specialist in mental health, but you have to know about the gut. And for example, I spoke to the major addiction conference, substance use disorders conference in Canada on the microbiome and addiction. So again, you would normally, if you were in that field, look at the microbiome as an issue because it's proven to affect intake of substances of abuse. So fascinating, isn't it? So we say we're microbiome and addiction, but technically in the future that would just be I would say step one evaluation for any person.
Brilliant. And by the way, to all our viewers, you could be anywhere in the world to book an appointment with any of the healthcare professionals at NutriChem. And now that we live in this beautiful day and age, everything's done by telemedicine, if you will, or Zoom or what have you. So take the initiative, write that down, invest in yourself, and make it a goal to, now more than ever during this current world state, it is very important to balance your microbiome and boost your immunity. So Ken, tell us about the book journey. How did you enjoy writing your book, Biology of the Brain, and working with the Ultimate Publishing House?
Well, writing a book like this in the microbiome, like in broad strokes, like you've heard from me, you're going, oh boy, this, everybody has to know about this. But being a chemist and a geek at heart, the science is moving so fast that by the time you write a chapter, you would want to write another chapter about the science. So again, it was, and that was where you were very helpful, transitioning from being a geeky book to actually, no, write it out and get people understanding what you have to do and get it done versus worrying about the science of it constantly. So, you need some help along that way because, people want, and ultimately over 40 years, the world actually needs people like me grounded in science and observation and facts, because there's so much garbage out there that you need someone that actually is nervous about writing a book and making sure all the science is right. But on the other hand, you still need to push it forward, and someone like you to push it forward and to get it done and capture the emotion, the passion, and the importance of it, which is more important ultimately, getting it done than worrying about the science. Because I'm not sure if anyone remembers the science of the book, or when, because obviously if they consult with me, they're dealing with up-to-date science versus the book, which is virtually, it's an appeal to understand the concepts.
Amazing, very good. And Ken, tell us about Suzanne Summers and your connection to her. I understand you're good friends with her and her husband.
Yeah, I mean, many years ago, I observed, like, and still, even to this day, there's poor women are, and somehow I guess I'm always drawn into fields where there's misinformation or the science is being ignored by pharmacists and the medical profession for whatever reason. We talk about antidepressants, PPIs. Hormones are also, for women, are also controversial, but they're not if you actually delve deeper into the science. Women and doctors want simple answers. Hormones good or bad. So I say a quick answer is hormones good. Make sure you use the right ones in the right dose. Very good. There's no evidence of harm doing it correctly. Lots of benefit. There's a quick answer. But then there is misinformation or lack of information. So historically, Suzanne Summers stepped into that realm. And I was like running lectures and seminars and spent lots of time and money trying to educate doctors on the science and pharmacists on the science of hormones. And honestly, I was going nowhere, whatever. And then meanwhile, Suzanne Summers steps up. I brought her to Canada, and like thousands of people changed their minds on hormones when she said so. So it blew my mind that the whole, the science versus do this because I say so. So, we, of course, she's helped thousands of women through me, but I wouldn't have done it without her. And yet she needed someone to actually do the work, right? To be the geek. But yeah. It's funny, right? How, science does need to be, the world does need promotion, but, thankfully she hooked up with a geek like me who wants to do it the right way. Yes. And, so yeah, it's a beautiful relationship because she pushes people to think differently, but you need someone to think differently, scientifically and safely. And I think that's kind of a nice, that's a nice relationship.
Very nice. So you're definitely the dynamic duo, Suzanne Summers and yourself. Great synergy, great combo. Let's talk a little bit about Andropause, the male menopause, and how we could help our male viewers listening to the show today and watching.
Yeah, I think again that's why the microbiome is important for men. And it's funny. Men always, in the middle of all this work I would do for women. Women would say if it was a man's problem, then all these things would have been sorted out. I said, are you kidding? First of all, men don't talk about it, and right? Men don't talk about it. Then even if they go in, I've had men who literally will say, I have all these symptoms of andropause, and then they'll be told they're depressed and get an antidepressant. So I said, at least a woman who goes in, who's 50 or so and goes in and says, I have all these symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, I feel crappy, I can't sleep, and they go, oh, you're in menopause. But a man who goes in and says, I feel, terrible, crappy, oh, you're depressed. Without measuring his testosterone, they just give him an antidepressant. So I said, men don't talk about it. And then when they do, they're just depressed and they get antidepressants. So, men are in a very weird spot. But when it comes to andropause, simplistically looking at testosterone level, we've learned is not appropriate. It's your testosterone to estrogen ratios that make a difference. Well, guess what happens? I have men whose wives have more estrogen in their body than they do. So that's not good, right? So what happens is that body fat in men and women makes estrogen, okay? So the more, the guys with the bellies and more weight make estrogen. And the unhealthier your microbiome is, the more you recycle estrogen in men and women and make and suppress testosterone in men. So literally, think of it, your microbiome doesn't metabolize safely and effectively in a man or woman, and you're making all this estrogen from your body fat in a man, effectively giving you more estrogen than a woman. So that's not good. And in a woman, you can make unhealthy forms of estrogen, even if you're not taking hormones. Some hormones are more at risk for cancer. So again, your microbiome actually influences your cancer risk in a woman because of how you're metabolizing hormones that are coming from your body fat. So guess what? Men and women in a healthier microbiome gives you more effective testosterone levels. I've seen effective testosterone levels jump 30 to 50% in a man, and in a woman, you make healthier forms of estrogen, reducing risk of different cancers, right? So how cool, like, again, very fascinating, right? That relationship of microbiome to testosterone level.
I love it, Kent. And everyone that's watching today really should understand that Kent MacLeod is one of the pioneers on the planet that has discovered the microbiome and has been focusing on that for easily 3 decades. So, I mean,
I discovered. I didn't discover.
Not discovered.
The world has discovered the micro. The world has discovered the microbiome.
Thank you for catching me there, Ken. This is what I meant was you're the one who is focusing on it.
Yes, of course.
Your shtick, as they say. So the beauty of that is, I mean, if you haven't realized by now that clearly the key to health is your microbiome. And today, there's no coincidences that you're listening or watching this, or you've read the book, Biology of the Brain. It's important to take that initiative and do what you got to do to, fix or balance your microbiome. So, Kent, I wanted to ask you before we conclude here, we have a few more minutes, if you can share with our viewers, why do you feel perhaps the microbiome hasn't been really focused on until recently? In the last few years, people are talking about it, but you've been talking about it for several decades. So what is it about the microbiome that some medical professionals don't realize that that's where it stems? Is it because it's still in its infancy stages in terms of papers and peer study reviews or what have you? Like, what is the missing link?
Well, the first, it's actually quite simple, right? I deal with this often, is that often a health professional like a doctor or even a pharmacist who has never studied diet, nutrition, will say to me, I don't want to read your book. Can't you just tell me the one product? What probiotic do I give people? I'm going, well, there are hundreds of double-blind placebo-controlled studies of certain probiotics in certain conditions, but you're missing the point. The big levers are diet, prebiotics, probiotics, and antibacterial soothing agents, antibacterials, antifungals. And so those big levers, I mean, naturopathic doctors, your nutritionists, spend years studying those things, and pharmacists, your doctors, will want to use the one product. And it doesn't mean that one product, like the other day, someone came to me and said, I tried a probiotic once, it didn't work, therefore I guess my microbiome is not the problem. I go, what? You know what I mean? So medicine and people, it's not just you want quick, simple answers. To me, it's remarkable that a month of work or 2, or even maybe as in more severe cases, 3, changes your life, but it may not require a simple response that you can get in a 5-minute visit or one product. It may not, it could be, but it may not, it may require so that's one big reason, right? It's hard to package and sell one product, and one company can't patent it or market it, and the doctors and the pharmacists are paid by the visit, and everybody, they have more pressure to do more things for less money. It's hard to get people through the door when you have to stop and evaluate all these things. So it's just a time and commitment problem, but cost effective, right? We spend billions and trillions on drugs that are harming people, and we can't somehow, I can get compensated to hand you PPIs, imagine, forever, and antidepressants forever, but I can't get compensated by insurance company to heal your gut and make you feel better. It's that weirdness and maybe we're just in transition. So there's no quick pill for this that one big company can market. That's the problem. And the people that you traditionally go to see, doctors and pharmacists who are the main engine, don't have a clue about how to deal with any of the big levers.
Well, thank the universe or thank God or whatever you believe in for someone like you, Kent MacLeod, for bringing this and educating the planet and doing what you're doing with NutriChem and your book, Biology of the Brain. So to our viewers, check out NutriChem.com. Please go ahead and order yourself a book or two, maybe for a friend or family member, of Biology of the Brain. And truly thank you today, Kent, for your time and your incredible knowledge. So thank you for being part of the Hardcore Hustle.
Thank you for having me. It's hard to shut me up.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. We never get tired of listening to you. So thank you again, Kent. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Hardcore Hustle. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.